Beyond the most basic JavaScript one-liners, we need to start asking questions, being able to have code that only runs under certain conditions rather than all the time. And we begin this with the classic if statement found in any programming language, written in JavaScript as in other C-based languages using this format. We have the word if, and then we have a condition inside parentheses. And then if that condition is true, we will execute whatever code is inside the braces here. Now, a quick aside for the folks new to programming. Yes, in programming languages, we are really picky about the symbols we use and about what we call them. So just to be very specific, when I say parentheses, I mean these. When I say brackets, and I'll usually say square brackets, I mean these guys. And when I say braces, and I'll usually say curly braces, I mean these. Now, they serve similar purposes to mark where something starts and where it finishes, but they are not interchangeable. Now, all of these are always found in pairs. If you have an opening one, you will need a closing one. It may be several lines later, but it needs to be there. So back to the if statement. So in this case, the parentheses are used to mark out whatever our condition is, and the curly braces used to mark out what we'll do if that's true, which could be one JavaScript statement, could be a dozen, could be 100. Now, whatever the condition is, whatever we're asking, whatever's in the parentheses here must evaluate as true or false. So if I have a variable called a and I want to see if it's less than 50, I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's 49 or -5 million or 50.0001. All I want to know is this true or is it false? Is a less than 50 or isn't it? Is B more than 20 or isn't it? All conditions must boil down to simply true or false. Now, if I have a variable called C and I want to check that it's equal to something, to check equality in JavaScript, as in other C-based languages, I can use the double equals sign, and there's no spaces between them. Double equals is considered a single operator. Now, heads up, even for the programmers, JavaScript has another way of checking equality, the triple equals sign. Now, we'll come back and talk about equality again, but realize for now that if in a condition, if you're asking if something is equal to something else, you will never use a single equal sign. As we saw with variables, a single equal sign is an assignment. It's a command. It sets a value, not checks a value. So we can use double equals, or right now triple equals will do the same thing. Again, we'll come back to this one. And if I want to check that a variable is not equal to another value, it's the exclamation mark and equal sign. In this case, checking that the variable d is not equal to 100. If that's true, we will execute our code. Now, when you have several statements surrounded by these curly braces, this is what's referred to as a code block. And this is all the curly braces do. They group a section of code together. They don't have any other meaning than that. And as you'll see, these blocks can be nested the same way, say in HTML, you can nest divs inside other divs. Now, a quick word about curly braces. When reading other people's code, you're likely to see them occur in a couple of different styles. I'm jumping across to Firefox with Firebug here, where I have my little JavaScript window open, and I'm declaring a variable called amount and setting it equal to 500, and then I have my if statement here. If amount is less than 1,000, that needs to be either true or false, then we'll execute whatever is between the opening and closing curly braces. Now, the opening curly brace right now is right after the condition, and that's probably the classic way that you'll see these for C and C++ programmers. You might also see the braces on separate lines so that they line up. People get religious about brace styles. JavaScript, of course, does not care. This is regarded as insignificant white space, and it doesn't change the meaning of the code. But most commonly in most sample code you'll download or you'll find online, you'll see it this way. Immediately opening the brace after the condition, but closing it on its own line. If I decide to run this, not surprisingly, I should have the pop-up box here saying it's less than 1,000. Now, if you have an if statement and you only want to then execute one line of code, technically you don't need to put the braces in. You don't need to define a code block for one line, but it's good practice to always do it, because if you miss it off, it's really easy to mess things up if you decide to edit this code later. So always use the blocks. And we'll always be using these code blocks, even if we only have one JavaScript statement within them. So if this code is executed when the condition is true, well, what happens if it isn't? If you just leave it like this, nothing. It would skip over the if and begin on the next line. But if you wanted something else to happen, you can follow the if with an else statement. And in this case, have another code block that runs different code. If the first condition is true, we run the code in the first block. Otherwise, we run the code in the second block. And you can even nest them inside each other and check a different condition. But don't nest too deep. JavaScript can handle this quite fine, but lots of nested ifs, say even beyond 2 levels, is quite difficult to read and make sense of. If we do have to have more complex logic, we're going to start breaking things apart into their own functions.